Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. I'm Paul,
And I'm Dave.
and this week we're discussing the episode of Angel entitled Waiting in the Wings. This episode originally aired February 4th, 2002, attracting approximately 4.57 million viewers. Alrighty, so let us start off with the number one movie in America this week. Dave, do you have any guesses? February
This was,
2002.
yeah, around then. With the last couple of weeks, and what was the super last big one, the end of last year into this year, mm, nothing
La-
is immediately springing to mind.
Last week was Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, it's with that one. You supposed Oscar bait. Nah, nothing's immediately jumping to mind.
Okay. I wouldn't expect you to know this film. It is a movie called Collateral Damage, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay, somewhat understandable, though from his repertoire, I can't specifically recall it.
Yeah, no, nobody does.
Hmm.
This is not one of.
Not his typical action movie fare, something a little bit different.
No, it's a typical action movie. It just didn't do very well.
So sad.
It was when Arnold was in a major decline at the time. Anyway, moving on to number one song in America this week. Any guesses?
Probably just go with the safest bet and say it's the same from last week, since I can't specifically recall anything that really jumps out in my head for the music.
It is still "You Got It Bad" by Usher.
Yes.
You're such a fan. Okay, so now what about video games? Well, on the day this episode came out, there was a little game called Reckless the Yakuza Missions, which was an Xbox exclusive. If you waited a few days till February 6th and you had a PS2, you could pick up NFL Blitz 2002.
Nah.
If that wasn't really your thing and you could wait a few more days and you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Super Mario Advance 2 Super Mario World, which is a game I played a ton as a kid.
Oh, there you go.
And finally, if you had a PS2 on the same day that Super Mario Advance 2 came out, you could also pick up High Heat Major League Baseball 2003,
Oh,
which I'm sure somebody bought, but ooh.
supposed experience with that, or just kind of the case of ew, baseball, not touchy.
I mean, there are great baseball games, but this is not one that I would default to. I've never heard of this franchise, High Heat.
Newly noted.
Moving on to February 11th, there are a couple of games that come out this day, actually. So on the PS2, we have this little game called Maximo Ghosts to Glory. I'm not familiar with.
Oh, no, I know of this one. Need to work through the series, but essentially taking the concept of ghost and goblets and doing what most game things have been doing around the time and sticking it in 3D.
Okay, okay. Also, if you had a PS2 on the same day, you could pick up Star Wars Racer Revenge, which is a sequel to Episode 1 Racer on the N64.
Not understandable though. At most, it makes me wonder why they added the revenge, aside from just the case of they needed an additional thing in the title to differentiate it from the first one.
No idea. No idea. I've,
Yeah.
I've never played it. And also on February 11th, if you had a GameCube, oh, did you have a good day this day? You could pick up Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Yes, and it's the GameCube one, so it has the multiplayer and stuff in it, which I don't think the Dreamcast one did, but I might be wrong. Skipping ahead to February 12th, if you had a PS2, you could pick up a little game called State of Emergency. which, ooh, okay. That certainly looks like a thing. Also on February 12th, on the Game Boy Advance, you could get Zone of the Elders, The Fist of Mars.
Huh?
February 14th, if you were still rocking a Dreamcast, you could pick up NHL 2K2.
Oh, there you go. At least something.
I mean, I guess technically. If you had a PS2 or Xbox on the 17th, you could pick up Pirates, The Legend of Black Cat. That got a resounding nothing. And finally, on February 17th, if you had an Xbox, you could pick up UFC Tap Out, which was not a game that was terribly well received.
Oh dear.
I mean, it's fine, but not. Some of the later UFC games were much better. Anyway, moving on to the episode. Okay. So, we start off with Wesley researching a demon from one of Cordelia's visions while telling her about his romantic feelings toward Fred. After Gunn and Fred return from their breakfast, Angel announces he is taking them all to a production of the ballet Giselle, performed by a Russian ballet company that I'm not going to try to pronounce. Gunn is horrified since Angel had originally gone out to pick up tickets for one of his favorite bands, and he tells Angel they've lost the trust. Angel says he saw the same ballet performed by the same company in 1890, which made him cry like a baby, even though he was still evil back then.
On the one hand, yay, but on the other hand,
At the theater, the company's owner, Count Kurskov, promises the theater manager an unforgettable show, while a shadowed figure watches from above the stage and laughs. In preparation for the night at the ballet, Fred and Cordelia shop for new dresses, where Cordelia teaches Fred about the custom of buying an expensive dress, hiding the tag, and then returning it the next day. Cordelia broaches the subject of Fred's romantic interests. Cordelia thinks Fred's mind is on Wesley when Fred is really talking about Gunn. So Cordelia tells her that the feeling is mutual, and I mean, she still manages to be right.
Yeah, as it stands.
Yes. Lauren tells Angel he knows about the vampire's feelings for Cordelia. Angel initially denies it, but Lauren reminds him that Cordelia has grown into an amazing woman, and jokingly points out that Angel seems to have a thing for ex-cheerleaders. Which, I mean, fair.
He's not wrong.
He's, like, hurtful, but right. Angel is Angel's unsure of how he should pursue her, considering he doesn't feel he has anything he can offer her. Lauren tries to talk him around, telling him that moments like this don't come around very often and he should act on his feeling. Cordelia arrives in her new dress and tells Angel that she hopes to leave behind their regular lives and enjoy an evening of classical dance. Angel only agrees. Compliments are directed to everyone as their attire is revealed at the hotel and they depart together. Although I did have a very good laugh when Gunn comes out in his tuxedo because it was very funny.
Understandably.
There's just something about him in the tuxedo that made me giggle.
No, in my case, it was the same sort of reaction that Fred had.
At the theater, the gang find their way to their seats, and Angel grumbles about the distance to the stage and remembers how, in the past, getting a box seat was only a good meal away. Oh, good stuff. The show begins, and Cordelia is instantly bored to sleep. Like, they don't get through the first, number.
Yeah, no. Just, she's out like a light.
It's very good. While Gunn finds himself enraptured with the performance, Angel, as he watches, begins to get troubled at the sight of the dancers. During intermission, Angel tells his friends that the show is the same as the one he saw in 1890, even with the same dancers. He knows the dancers aren't vampires, so the gang decide to investigate. Angel and Cordelia sneak backstage, where they discover they are mystically trapped in a maze of corridors. Looking through the prima ballerina's dressing room, Angel observes that the room hasn't changed in 200 years as Cordelia examines a cross necklace from a table. Both feel the room warm, and Cordelia suddenly asks Angel to undress her. Soon they find themselves possessed by spirits in love and are unable to keep their hands off each other until Cordelia accidentally burns Angel with the cross. Both come to their senses and leave the dressing room before things go too far. Worried, Fred encourages Gunn and Wesley to help her look for the missing Angel and Cordelia. The Count directs his minions to deal with those sneaking around backstage. While trying to escape the backstage halls, Cordelia recalls an element of fear she had while possessed. She convinces Angel to re-enter the dressing room so that they can break the spell holding them backstage. Where they are possessed by spirits again, Cordelia calls Angel Stefan and confesses her fears of another man controlling her life. They kiss, and Stefan offers to take her away, but she wants him to help her deal with the problem instead. As Fred tends to a wounded gun received in the battle with the Count's minions, comedy and tragedy, he jokes about his injury, and Fred gets emotional because she thought he was seriously hurt. The two kiss as Wesley quietly discovers them and walks away. The ballet continues on stage as the gang gathers backstage. Wesley explains that he hit a hot spot and felt the Count's jealousy. He was a wizard who discovered that the prima ballerina, whom he adored, had a lover, so he forced her into a temporal shift where she would dance for him forever. As Angel searches for the Count's power center, he finds the prima ballerina waiting in the wings. Resigned to perform the same dance for the rest of eternity, regretting that she didn't leave when Stefan urged her to. Meanwhile, the rest of the gang weaken the Count's magic by fighting off the Count's demons, who multiply whenever they're killed. The prima ballerina sadly tells Angel that during the first act, her foot slips a little each time during the courtship dance. She's not dancing each night, but rather just repeating her movements for eternity. Angel tells her that to break the magic holding her prisoner, she has to change the dance. She dances on stage using her own steps. Angel attacks the Count, and guessing the power center is on the giant medallion he wears around his neck, smashes it with a punch, finally releasing the ballet dancers. The prima ballerina bows to Angel as she vanishes. The court tells Angel he has no right to do this. The prima ballerina was his and danced only for him. In response, Angel knocks him out. Wesley dresses Gunn's injury and watches as Fred and Gunn exchange loving looks. Angel and Cordelia agree to forget what happened between them while they were possessed. However, Angel begins to admit his true feelings for Cordelia, but he is interrupted when the Gruselug appears on the stairs. Cordelia goes to Gru and they kiss. Lauren comes downstairs to inform Angel that Pylea has formed a republic with no need for a leader. Gru returned to Cordelia, dejected. Angel goes upstairs to check on Connor, while Fred and Wesley watch on, commenting that the path of love is not something that can be foretold. Right. So, what did you think of this episode?
On whole, it turned out fairly good, though the base of the story wasn't anything super interesting and whatnot. It was interesting enough to see the love story that's kind of developing with Angel with Cordelia, as well as Fred making more of a decision of how to go about with either Wesley or Gunn, and the decision that came from that, and the additional consequences of how everything's going to go on from this point.
Yes. Okay. It's not maybe like an amazing episode, but there are a few things that I really, really like. One of them, and this is going to sound really dorky, is did you see the theater that they're in?
Yes, with that one.
Oh my god, does it look amazing?
Indeed. It is a very nice theater.
It is a beautiful theater. And also the design of like comedy and tragedy, like his henchmen. I love that design.
Yes. Indeed.
The one with the frown mask and the one with the smile that looks like the Joker. It's very good. They're very good designs. I love that. Alrighty. So, did you have anything else about this episode?
This one, I suppose the question is going to be with now Gru showed up. It's like, how's this going to work? But I think more so just with all the particular characters, I have a twinge of worry for Wesley just with how it sits.
Why? What do you think's going to happen?
Well, there was a love issue that happened with Fred, and Fred decided to go with Gunn, and Wesley still has the feelings, but just with the interactions they had in the theater, though that might have just been influence of the wizard and the magic that was on effect. The case of uh, would it push Wesley enough to kind of go back to the craziness that he was a couple episodes back in Billy?
Well, we'll see. There is kind of a fun note about this episode. There, you can buy an action figure. For some reason, they didn't make toys of everybody's appearance in this episode, but only Wesley's. So you can get the tuxedo Wesley, but nobody else.
Intriguing.
So I don't know why that was a thing they decided on, but it was. And it made me look through all of the like Angel toys, and I was like, oh, 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 I want those.
Oh no, you got down that rabbit hole. How bad did it hit your wallet?
Oh, I haven't bought any because I'm scared to look. The thing is, I'm scared to look at the prices
Yeah, usually the safest bet.
because they did make a toy of the Angel doll from that episode.
Oh no.
But last time I checked, it was stupidly expensive.
I wouldn't be surprised. Though I suppose it's a question of is that the actual doll or is it just the one that they put for sale?
No, it's like a. No, it's like a reproduction.
Yeah, product sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not like the actual like screen used one. Because for the price it was selling for, if it was actually like the screen used one, I would have bought it without thinking. Because it was like $100 or something. So I'm like, oh, well, if it was screen used, it wouldn't be a thing. But yeah, they're a little too expensive for my taste. Anyway, moving on from toys. So we do have some international titles for this episode, and actually a few good ones, I think.
Oh yeah.
So we'll start off with Finnish, where it translates as classic movements, which I think is quite clever.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, next up we have French, which is the backstage of eternity.
You know, kind of smacking the nail on the head with that one.
A little bit. In German, we have love and other difficulties.
Yeah, that works.
Italian, we have behind the scenes. In Brazilian Portuguese, we have solitary wait. In Russian, we have waiting backstage. In Latin American Spanish, we have behind the scenes. And finally, in Spain Spanish, we have on the sideline.
That works out pretty good.
They're all actually pretty good. I think I like the Finnish and the French one the best, like classic movements or the backstage of eternity. I think those are my favorites, but
Kind of sitting a bit more, the word. Kind of going a bit more with the dancer aspect instead of focusing in on the theater.
I mean, I feel like the episode is so heavily based on the dance anyway that like you kind of have to focus on that in the title.
Yeah, that's true. Especially with the wizard's obsession.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of, you know. Anyway, if there's
Well, pretty much every title kind of hits it in some kind of respect. It works out amazingly.
yeah, like they all kind of work, some better than others in my opinion, but they're all quite good. So, if there's nothing else about this episode, next week we'll be discussing the episode Couplet. Oh, how nice. So, in this episode, the Gruselug, who has been exiled from Pylea, arrives in Los Angeles. Angel wonders if he's needed on the team anymore. Gunn and Fred begin a romantic relationship. They end up underground as captives of a life-draining tree creature. Well, that happens to everyone. The Gruseleg fails to save them, but Angel steps in and succeeds where the Gruseleg could not. Cordelia and the Gruseleg leave town on a vacation to begin their own relationship. Wesley acquires an ancient book where he finds a disturbing prophecy about the baby Connor.
Oh boy.
Dun dun dun. So until next time, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.